ਹਾਂਜੀ, ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ। ਉਮੀਦ ਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਠੀਕ ਹੋਵੋਗੇ। ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦਿਖਾਉਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਹਾਂ ਜੀ ਅੰਡਰਗਰਾਊਂਡ ਗਾਰਡਨਸ। ਹੋਪ ਆ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਨੂੰ ਪੂਰਾ ਇੰਜੋਏ ਕਰੋਗੇ ਅਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਮੈਂਟਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੱਸਿਓ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਲੱਗੀ। ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਬੰਦੇ ਦੀ ਸਟੋਰੀ ਆ, ਉਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਆਪਣੇ ਹੱਥੀਂ ਬਣਾਉਂਦਾ ਇਸ ਗਾਰਡਨ ਨੂੰ। ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੂਟੇ ਆ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਬੂਟੇ ਨੂੰ 7 ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਫਲ ਲੱਗਦੇ ਆ। ਉਹ ਆਈ ਹੋਪ ਆ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪੇ ਦੇਖ ਲੈਣਾ, ਬੈਨਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੱਗੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ। ਉਹ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਦੇਖ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਰੀਡ ਕਰ ਸਮਝ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ। ਉਸ ਜ਼ਮਾਨੇ ਦੇ ਬੈਡਰੂਮ ਵੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਉਣਗੇ, ਕਿਚਨ ਵੀ ਆਊਗੀ, ਉਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਦਾ ਫਿਸ਼ ਪੌਂਡ ਵੀ ਆਊਗਾ, ਅੱਜ ਤੋਂ 90 ਸਾਲ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਦੀ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਕਲਚਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ। ਸਾਰਾ ਹੈਂਡਮੇਡ ਆ ਇਹ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੰਜੋਏ ਕਰੋ, ਫਿਰ ਕਮੈਂਟਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੱਸਿਓ।
Few things. This is a guided tour, so please stay with me and allow me to guide you. Much of what you're going to be seeing is well over 100 years old and it is delicate. So we just ask that you just enjoy it with your eyes, not your hands. Might sound unusual, but that includes the walls and the planters and the benches. If you haven't already done so, would you please silence your cell phones at this time? We really encourage you to take pictures. Table in the center of the room. You know, it's not luxurious, but it met all of his needs. Not to mention it was very close to the herb garden, so he could just slip over there as he cooked. He did build the skylight so it's narrower at the top, so it would pull the heat up and out of the kitchen, get the heat away. Now we're going to step into his bedroom. If you'd like to come this way. And this is his bedroom. If you'd like to step right on in. Again, you have to use your imagination. imagination a little bit. But that the opening in the wall, that's where the head of his bed would have gone. Come out at an angle, bench over there, really nice alcove over here. You'll also notice in this area the use of the Roman arch over and over again. Now, to give you kind of an idea of how timing went, when you came down for your tour, you walked around a tree. That's where he first started digging. Then came over here, dug the bedroom, the kitchen, the herb garden area, and then went down the passageway that we're going to go down in just a couple of minutes. So how did he keep the rain out?
Yeah.
At the top of the skylights in the living quarters, he would leave a few inches open for ventilation, then just place a pane of clear glass over the top so that the light could come in, but the water would stay out. Speaking of water, at the end of the passageway, right down there, is his water well. You actually walked right past it as you came down for the tour. It goes down 40 feet. Now today, a conservative estimate, it would have to go down at least 300 feet in this area. That's how far the water table has dropped. But Balthazar had an interesting theory about water. He felt water was great for bathing, for washing your feet, for irrigating plants, not for drinking. Does anyone want to suggest what he felt you should be drinking? Wine, I heard it. He felt wine was the most sanitary thing you could drink. I had a lady on my tour one time was telling me that her grandfather grew up in a small Italian village. He said the exact same thing. His reasoning was because their main source of water was the fountain in the center of town. Well, people washed their clothes in the fountain. Animals drank out of the fountain. So the wine really was way more sanitary for them. However, full disclosure today, this is water that I'm drinking. It's not wine today. That would be a whole different tour if it wasn't. So we're now going to step, right down this passageway. You're going on your left, you're going to be passing 3 orange trees. You'll notice they all have very tall, very thin trunks. They had to use all their energy just to get to the surface, to get to the sun. But especially this first one, you can look up, you can see when they get to the surface, they branch out, they produce fruit. Balthazar planted all 3 of these trees. They're all over 100 years old. They're all Seville or sour orange trees. The Seville is a very sturdy, very hardy tree. I'm sure that's why he selected it, because it would have had the best chance of making it to the surface, which you can see they did. And we're now going on to dirt. So when you first step into the passageway, there's kind of a bump, so be careful as you step in.
When do you hold that other tour with the wine?
I heard that.
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਆ ਹੁਣ ਦਿਖਾਉਣ ਲੱਗੀ ਆ ਜੀ ਧਰਤੀ ਤੋਂ 25 ਫੁੱਟ ਥੱਲੇ ਤੇ 100 ਸਾਲ ਪੁਰਾਣਾ ਸੰਤਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਬੂਟਾ ਦਿਖਾਊਗੀ 100 ਸਾਲ ਪੁਰਾਣਾ ਸੰਤਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਬੂਟਾ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਸੰਤਰੇ ਲੱਗਦੇ ਹਜੇ ਵੀ
Different too. He's learning, he's experimenting different types of experience. Balthazar had no formal architectural or engineering training at all. So this was totally on-the-job training, and he was an avid reader, but he's totally self-taught himself.
Would you require a permit there then?
No, that was just it. This was his property, no permits required, no inspections required. You could pretty much do whatever you wanted to do. Well, we've now come to this opening in the passageway. It does bring in light and fresh air. It also served as one of his security measures. Right out there are the stairs that you came down for the tour. So he could look out, see who was coming down the stairs. They couldn't see him. Even from the courtyard across the way, he could see directly who was coming down. Now, not a terribly sophisticated system, but it would let him know who was coming down. Do it on this side. his own mortar. There's a lot of clay in the soil, so he would use clay and hard pan dust and water for his mortar that he would use. But where you're seeing cement, that is renovations that have been done since then. Okay, we have everybody? Well, I did mention Balthazar was very religious. Many of the prominent families in Sicily and Italy would have chapels in their own homes. So he decided to build a chapel in his home. This is the chapel garden. Notice it has 3 orange trees. And he trained the grapevine to come out of the hard pan in 3 locations. 1, 2, 3. However, nature does whatever nature wants to do. Nature brought it out of the hard pan over there, making it a 4 rather than the number 3 that he was working for. In 1923, Balthazar was interviewed by a reporter from the Fresno Bee, the local newspaper. He told that reporter, "The visions in my mind almost overwhelmed me." He had so many ideas of things he wanted to do. One of his visions that unfortunately never became a reality, he wanted to have a day resort or a day spa here, primarily for people that couldn't afford to go to the coast to get away from the summer heat. They could come here, enjoy beautiful, cool gardens, perhaps a restaurant. He did build a lake just to the east of us,
1920-30 ਦੇ
stocked it with fish.
ਵਿੱਚ ਲਾਗੇ ਬੰਨੇ ਦੇ ਯਾਰ ਮਿੱਤਰ ਸਾਰੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਬਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ, ਖਾਂਦੇ
farm
ਪੀਂਦੇ ਸੀ,
community. People were
ਕਿਉਂਕਿ
probably
ਬਾਹਰ
living
ਨਾਲੋਂ
pretty hard lives.
20-25
He
ਡਿਗਰੀ
felt
ਠੰਡਾ
if
ਸੀ।
they could just come here, pamper themselves for the day, it would be a great thing. Now you might have noticed I said perhaps a restaurant. There's just a lot about what Balthazar planned, what he did, how he did it, that we don't know because he never put anything down on paper. He knew in his mind what he wanted to do. He didn't want to be tied down to a piece of paper. So what we do know is what his family remembers, and there's just a lot that they never knew. We're not even certain how many acres of gardens he completed. In 1923, he took that reporter on a tour of 10 acres of gardens. It's estimated he completed about 20 acres. Now we're covering 2.5 acres right now on this tour, so that can kind of put into perspective what 20 acres would be. And we're now going to step into the chapel, and we can go in on either side.
ਲਓ ਜੀ, ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੇਖਣੀ ਉਹ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਫੋਰੈਸਟੀਅਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਰੱਬ ਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੀ, ਆਪਣੇ ਰੱਬ ਦੀ ਪਾਠ ਪੂਜਾ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੀ। ਉਹਨੇ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚਰਚ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਸੀ। ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਬੈਲ ਦਿਖਾਊਗੀ, ਉਹ ਸਾਲ 'ਚ ਸਿਰਫ ਇੱਕੋ ਦਿਨ ਵੱਜਦੀ ਆ, ਉਹਦੇ ਬਰਥਡੇ ਵਾਲੇ ਦਿਨ।
Now you might think Balthazar living down here was kind of a hermit, you know, a little reclusive. Not at all. He was very sociable, had lots of friends, enjoyed doing things with his family. He would show them how to come to this location. They'd ring the bell. The sound would reverberate throughout the tunnels and the gardens. No matter where he happened to be working that day, he'd hear it and come up and greet them. So it was his front door bell. I wish we knew the history of the bell. We don't. We know he didn't buy it new, but we don't know where it came from. However, it still has a beautiful tone. It's rung every year on his birthday on July 8th on the hour, so we do get to hear it sometimes. Okay, a little family history. You'll see better pictures of Balthazar, but this just kind of keeps people straight. In 1946, at the age of 67, he'd been working here for 40 years. All of this hard work began to take a toll on his health. He developed a hernia, which required surgery. Surgery was totally successful. Unfortunately, he contracted pneumonia in the hospital and passed away. Now, Balthazar never married. My husband says that's why he was able to accomplish so much. He had no children, and he left no will. So there was a considerable debate among his siblings as to what to do with the property. His brother Giuseppe appreciated and valued what Balthazar had created here. The rest of them not at all, and the land was sold. Giuseppe used his inheritance to purchase back 10 acres of land, which included about 4 acres of what he considered the heart of the gardens. And that's what we have today, totally thanks to Giuseppe, because the rest of Balthazar's work was filled in and buried and destroyed. and that's why we don't know exactly how many acres he completed. There are a couple of houses right along Highway 99 that do have rooms in their backyards. One man uses it as a storage room and appropriately a wine cellar. Now, Giuseppe now considered himself keeper number 2 of the gardens. He cared for them until his death in 1973, at which time his son Ricardo, or Rick, became keeper number 3. Rick and his wife Lorraine recognized the need to obtain some official protection for the gardens. So they pursued this. In 1975, they were listed on the National Register of Historic Places. 1979, designated State Historical Landmark number 916. Rick and Lorraine cared for the gardens until their deaths. Their children and grandchildren still own the gardens, very much consider them their legacy, and are very involved in the day-to-day operation of the gardens. Okay, so how did he afford to do all of this? For the first 20 years, he hired himself out to the local farmers and landowners as a day laborer, primarily clearing land and digging irrigation ditches, which is where he got a lot of the pieces of metal that he used as reinforcements. Meanwhile, the trees are growing, they're producing fruit. His brother Giuseppe owned a market not far from here, the Sicilian grocer. He would sell Balthazar's fruit in the market. After 20 years, he was making enough money from the fruit. He didn't need that extra income. He could devote all of his time here. Now, he wasn't totally self-sufficient, but he did keep... This is his dining room. He did build a dining room table. It's believed that this was a prototype of the ones he wanted to have in the resort, and he would have had a live dwarf orange growing in the center of the table. Also, one thing earlier I mentioned mattress springs. We have some mattress springs right up here that he was using. Now, in a minute.
ਇੱਥੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਮੱਛੀਆਂ ਰੱਖੀਆਂ ਸੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਖਾਣ ਨੂੰ। ਮੱਛੀਆਂ ਫੜ ਕੇ ਲੈ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਸੀ, ਫਿਰ ਇੱਥੇ ਰੱਖਦਾ ਸੀ, ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਦਾ ਦਿਲ ਕਰਦਾ ਉਦੋਂ ਖਾ ਲੈਂਦਾ ਸੀ। ਉਹ ਜਿੰਦੀ ਮੱਛੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਰੱਖ ਲੈਂਦਾ ਸੀ, ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਖਾਂਦਾ ਸੀ। ਤੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਸੇਫਟੀ ਲਈ ਮੋਰ ਵੀ ਰੱਖੇ ਸੀ। ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੇਖਣੇ ਜੀ ਬੈਡਰੂਮ ਉਹਦੇ, ਇੱਕ ਸਿਆਲਾਂ ਵਾਲਾ, ਇੱਕ ਗਰਮੀਆਂ ਵਾਲਾ। Summer bedroom, winter bedroom.
This is his parlor. This is where he would have entertained friends. It does have an original, actually a front door. I don't know how much it was actually used, but if the resort had become a reality, it would have been used because this would have been residence on this side. That would have been resort. We have his original table. If you look back, you can see all the way to the water well from here. And even through both of these windows, you can see quite a ways. Balthazar did this on purpose. He called them vistas. He wanted it to be open and airy. He didn't want you to feel, you're underground, all claustrophobic and closed in. This we call the waterfall planter. It's different than the other planters we've seen in that it's square, as is the skylight overhead. Then he built a lip around the base of the skylight. When the water would come in, it would come in 4 panels. So it would look like a waterfall no matter where you were standing, hence waterfall planter. Would also bring all the water into the planter, both to irrigate the tree.
ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ ਆਪਾਂ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਵੀ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਉਹ 25 ਫੁੱਟ ਥੱਲੇ ਸੀ। ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੇਖਣਾ ਇਹ 35 ਫੁੱਟ ਥੱਲੇ ਆ, ਗਰਾਊਂਡ ਲੈਵਲ ਤੋਂ 35 ਫੁੱਟ ਥੱਲੇ ਆ। ਇੱਥੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਉਹ ਬੂਟਾ ਦੇਖਣਾ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ 7 ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਫਲ ਲੱਗਦੇ। ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮੈਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ 'ਚ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਨਾ 7 ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਫਲ ਲੱਗਦੇ, ਉਹ ਬੂਟਾ।
In the summer we stay down here a while. When we're doing this in November, we zoom right through here. It's really cold.
Yeah, this one looks nice, huh?
Drip irrigation now.
We do now. He did all hand irrigation.
He did hand by hand.
Yeah, we cheat. I was curious what the major agricultural crops that were in Fresno at the time he came. So I looked it up in 1910. I guessed it was grapes and raisins, but what I didn't guess was figs, and I should have, because figs, you know, we have fig garden, this fig garden here in Fresno, figs, and then cotton was just starting to come in at the time. So those were the big crops. Let's see, we have everybody? Want to let everybody in?
Now there's lots of citrus east of Fresno,
Yeah,
isn't there?
yeah. Here. This tree we call the tree of 7 fruits because at one time it did produce 7 different varieties of fruit. 3 oranges, 2 lemons, a grapefruit, and a citron called cedro. Cedro is very popular in Sicily. It's basically a very large lemon. They can weigh up to 8 pounds apiece, so they're very large lemons. 5 of the grafts have fallen off over the years, so the tree is currently producing Valencia oranges and Seville or sour oranges. You can notice the catwalk he built around, much more convenient to get to the fruit from up there than from down here. And these metal protrusions, also he would place a plank on top of them to be able to get to the fruit more easily. But they could have had other uses. One of my elementary school groups said, of course it's a jungle gym. So anybody's guess is as good as anybody else's, what they could have been used for. We did discuss Balthazar would go fishing. He would fish in the Sicilian manner, meaning he'd use nets rather than the hook and line that we know. And this is the observation room down here.
Observation?
Down there.
I see. He's sitting right here, huh?
Yeah, he could be. And then there's aquarium is up here.
Ow.
About sitting down in the observation room. His nephew Rick came to visit him one day, rang the bell, nobody came. So he started walking around, got too close to the aquarium, heard this muffled sound, looked down in the observation room. There was Balthazar sitting there, sound asleep. Central Valley ceramic fish, sourced for you from Hobby Lobby. Want to make sure you didn't miss those. Well, you know, even though this took him 40 years, it's still a very large body of work. You might think Balthazar was a workaholic, but he realized you have to have a balance in your life. He embraced the Italian concept of dolce far niente. That he envisioned, it would have an event center for large celebrations, large parties. His plan was the attendees would arrive in style coming down the Otter Tunnel, be met here by a valet who would take their car out to the back to be parked, and they would proceed through this tunnel to their festivities. I can't promise you festivities, but we're going to head through the tunnel. No, I can go right.
Oh, this tunnel, huh? ਸਾਰਾ ਘੁੰਮ ਫਿਰ ਕੇ ਇੱਧਰ ਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਜੀ ਰੈਸਟੋਰੈਂਟ ਏਰੀਆ। ਇੱਥੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਬਹਿ ਕੇ ਆਰਾਮ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ, ਖਾ ਪੀ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ। ਕੁਛ ਉਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਪੁਰਾਣੇ ਟੂਲ ਆ ਇੱਥੇ, ਉਹ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਆਪਾਂ। ਤੇ 20 ਸੈਕਿੰਡ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਆ। ਸਿਰਫ ਉਹ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਮੈਮਰੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਯਾਦ, ਉਹ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਆਪਾਂ।
I want you to see on this is the only, coming up is the only video we have of Balthazar, and I want you to see it before we get started. Since you've been hearing about it, this is Balthazar. That was Balthazar. I just wanted to make sure you got to see him. Well, welcome to his ballroom. This was the last room Balthazar worked on. He did excavate the full 3,500 square foot room. He did the stonework over the stage, the back wall, over the fireplace, and over the tunnel that we came through. But then he passed away. Now the surface is just below the windows, so when he died, this was just a huge hole in the ground. His brother Giuseppe decided to complete the room as a labor of love in honor of his brother, but he also decided he was going to put his own spin onto the room. Balthazar probably would have done the walls in stonework, but
ਇਹ ਸੀ ਜੀ ਸਾਡਾ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਵਲੌਗ। ਉਮੀਦ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਪਸੰਦ ਆਇਆ ਹੋਊਗਾ। ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਲਾਈਕ, ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਤੇ ਕਮੈਂਟ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕਰਿਓ। ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਸ਼ੁਕਰੀਆ ਜੀ। ਆਈ ਹੋਪ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਨੂੰ ਲਾਈਕ ਅਤੇ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਵੀ ਕਰੋਗੇ ਅਤੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਅਤੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਉੱਥੇ ਦਿਖਾਉਣ ਵੀ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਜਾਓ।